Very often when we do portable live production, we also need to be able to bring in an external computer as a source into our switch. It could be a PC or a Mac. Someone may want to play back a PowerPoint presentation or even do some sort of software training. Traditionally, this means we have to get a scan converter and convert that computer signal into a video signal. The video signal would then take up one of the inputs coming into my switcher. With the TriCaster, any computer that's connected to the same network as the TriCaster can show up as an input in the TriCaster. When you opened your TriCaster, there was a small box inside of the TriCaster box which contained some adapters and a disk. On that disk, you'll find a piece of software called iVGA. iVGA is the client software that we want to load onto the external computers that are going to show up as an input in the TriCaster. We simply copy iVGA to that computer and we run the iVGA software. You'll know that iVGA is running because you'll see a small color bar television monitor show up in the icon tray in the lower right-hand corner of the PC. Once we have the computer connected to the network and we have iVGA running on that external computer, we go to our external tab. Inside the external tab, we have a small production router. This allows us to actually connect to 3 computers simultaneously and instantly switch between those 3 computers. Let's go ahead and connect to my external laptop. We're going to pop the list open and I can see all of the computers on my network that are running iVGA. I'm going to go ahead and select my laptop. My laptop instantly shows up in my external preview monitor and is now available. If I bring up external on preview and execute a switch, we're now seeing the PowerPoint being displayed from my laptop. I can now run the laptop and it is brought into my video presentation like any other input. Now remember, now that we have our external computer source coming in as an input, we treat it like any other input in the TriCaster. If you're working with a TriCaster that has live set technology, we can now use that on the effects row and we can key any of our green screen talent over the top of that PowerPoint, or if we have our talent inside of a virtual set, we can put the external input on the effects row and that will put the PowerPoint or our external computer display on the on-screen monitor inside of the virtual set. You can see that some of the controls inside the external tab are ghosted out, and these are the controls for iVGA overlay and our output to VGA. These controls are ghosted when a second monitor or a projector is not hooked up to the second VGA output from the video card. Let's go ahead and hook up an output to that second VGA out from our video card. Now that we have our second VGA output connected, this is the program out VGA version, we can see that our controls have come to life. We now have the ability to do what's called an iVGA overlay. So if we bring in the external computer just as a source and we switch to it, this is being scan converted. Now, if you are using a projector to do a presentation to a large live audience, then we can do something called an iVGA overlay to sharpen the image on the projector only. Now we can come down here under iVGA overlay and we can either do a take to cut it onto the screen or we can fade it up and down on the screen. And what you'll notice when we engage iVGA overlay is we get a rock solid version of the output of the computer on our secondary VGA output. So again, the people in the room that are looking at the projector would see a pristine version of the PowerPoint presentation. The video output and the stream are unaffected. So you could continue to roll a video production, switching between cameras and inputs and rolling the PowerPoint presentation in for the people watching on the stream or the people that get maybe a DVD of the recorded output later. But the people in the room see an absolute pristine version of that iVGA source on their projector. Now again, this can be faded up and down over top of what's coming out on the projector at like any other input. So you could be doing a switch and then just go ahead and hit the fade button and it's going to fade that up right over the top. It's going to look like any other transition in the TriCaster and then you can fade it back down. Again, this is for the projector output only. We also have our output to VGA controls. We have the ability of setting the output resolution of that second VGA output from our video card. So what we can use this for is, If we can determine what the native resolution of our projector that we're hooking up is, we can set the TriCaster's output to match that native resolution. Then we can go into the menu of the projector and we can turn the scaler off in the projector. This will reduce the latency that we get when using a TriCaster for doing something like image magnification. The latency out of a TriCaster is 2 to 4 frames, but this latency can be reduced by gen-locking your cameras and using SDI cameras and SDI projectors. Also have the ability to key a presentation. This means I could create, say, a green square in a PowerPoint presentation and then frame a camera up so that when I key that green square out, I have the head of the person giving the PowerPoint presentation inside of the PowerPoint presentation. We also have the ability to do a little bit of positioning and cropping on this, and we can adjust brightness, contrast, and do a little bit of video enhancement, again for the VGA output only. We do ship an adapter in the box that comes inside of the TriCaster box to adapt the DVI output on the back of the TriCaster to a standard 15-pin VGA computer cable. Now, when working with iVGA on the external computer, we also have a few options with iVGA itself. iVGA shows up in the icon bin down in the right-hand corner, and it is this little color bar television. I can tell it's active because the color bars are moving across it. If it was just running but not connected to a TriCaster, those bars would not be moving. Now, if you right-click on iVGA itself, you get some options. And we have some setup options which allow us to determine which monitor on our external computer. If the computer that we are bringing in as an external source has 2 displays, we can choose which display we want to see. We can choose to see the mouse cursor or not see the mouse cursor. And we can also choose our network speed, and this is critical. If we're using a gigabit Ethernet connection, we definitely want to make sure that we set this up for gigabit Ethernet to give us the best possible response. This comes into play if we're going to be using videos inside of our PowerPoint or even PowerPoints with fancy animated builds. You're going to want to have a gigabit Ethernet connection to get nice smooth video playback. And this is the way that we do that. We want to select gigabit Ethernet on the computer itself through the iVGA interface. Again, we have versions of iVGA for both Mac or PC, so once you get it loaded onto the machine, you can access those options. Another thing to remember is you don't actually have to load iVGA onto the external computer. You could actually run it from a thumb drive. So just copy iVGA to a thumb drive, put the thumb drive in a USB port, and run iVGA from the thumb drive. It will work. Then you can stop iVGA when you're done and remove the thumb drive, and you haven't had to install anything onto anyone's computer in order to use iVGA.